Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to episode 11 of the Wargiven Racing Podcast. Today, I thought we'd do something a bit different, considering I don't have a whole lot of time this morning, but I wanted to talk some F1 while the private test in Barcelona is ongoing. I've seen pictures, obviously, of the McLaren and Haas and Alpine out on track, and I enjoy the look of the cars. I would be watching testing if it was available, but it's not, which is why we're here doing something that I would consider kind of cheap to do on YouTube, but I'm going to do it because I like to give my thoughts on matters, and it is a tier list. So, we're going to be doing two tier lists today. The first tier list is the 2022 tracks. Now, the tier list I found only had one track, or the 2021 tracks, sadly. So, Miami and, for whatever reason, Saudi Arabia is not on this list. So, I will just put those straight now, and they can't rank Miami and Jeddah. Even if I could rank them, I probably wouldn't because the Miami track hasn't been raced at, and then Jeddah has only had one race, and I watched about a third of it because I had just gotten off work and I watched it on tape delay, and I saw the shenanigans and was just like, well, I'm just gonna skip to the end. So, track ranking. I think we've got to go in order of the 2022 calendar. So first up is Bahrain. So Bahrain, an interesting track. I always enjoy it on the F1 games. I've only watched two races there since I've only been watching F1 since the 2020 season. The first race was obviously Roman Grosjean's horrific crash coming out of the first complex of corners. And that race was won, I believe, rather easily by Lewis Hamilton. And then, obviously, last year's race there was pretty great between Hamilton and Verstappen, but had that track limits controversy. I'm going to give it a B. I like Bahrain. I like the amount of straights it has, which offers the slipstream, which is important for a modern F1 car, but I do like that the first few corners are different, and I like that middle sector has a nice flowing feel to it. Sure, that left-hander turn 10 is kind of horrible, especially on the F1 game, but I don't think it's bad. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing for drivers. I think it's a nice challenge. But I don't think it's A. Definitely don't think it's S. So I'm going to stick it in the B. B for Bahrain. So next they go to Jeddah. But as I mentioned, I'm not going to rank Jeddah. One, it's not here. And two, I didn't really watch the race there. So I believe that takes us to Albert Park. So obviously, if you know the news around it, Albert Park isn't in this layout anymore. They changed the first and second sectors to be a bit more flowing and faster. And then they rearranged some corners in the final sector to make it a bit either hard braking or just wider in general. So because I actually haven't watched a race at Albert Park, I'm also going to throw it in the can't rank. I hate driving in it on the F1 game because I suck there. But from what I've seen on replays and cameras and other video games, I like the track, but I'm not gonna rank it until I see it this year. So after Albert Park, I believe they go to Imola, and this one's easy for me. S tier. I love old school tracks. Imola fits the bill there. I mean, obviously the tragic deaths of Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna in '94 overshadowed this track's legacy in F1, as well as some horrific crashes that happened before. But I don't know if it's just seeing those modern cars that definitely shouldn't be on this track just go around the track. I love it. To me, it's a fantastic circuit for F1. It's one of those where you have to nail that qualifying lap. Um, or if you're going to make a race move in the race, you got to set it up primarily down that front stretch. But sometimes, you can get it into, I believe it's the Tosa hairpin up here. But I love the track. The only thing I'd maybe change about it is that chicane in the sector 2, sector 3. I don't like it. If they could find a way to either get rid of it, as I don't think it's necessary at that part of the track. Maybe it is. Change it up a bit. That's the only thing I change about. Other than that, S all the way, historic track. Um, let's see. After there, I believe they go to Spain. So Barcelona. Oh boy. It's and then it's got that last sector. So I think I have to put it as a D. I think the rest of the track is a B. I just think that final sector is so bad, especially with that chicane, that it drops it down 2 letter grades. There was an interesting race there last year. The race in 2020 was kind of boring. I mean, it was a domination of Mercedes, and then I think Max got third. And everybody up to third was lapped or something like that, something crazy. So Barcelona has its moments, but that final sector really brings it down for me. So after Barcelona, I believe they go to Miami, or they go from Imola to Miami to Spain. Anywho, can't rate Miami. It's not on here 1 and 2. There hasn't been a race there, so I'm not going to rank it. So that takes us to Monaco. And I think I got to put Monaco in A. And it's A because of qualifying. Last year's Monaco Grand Prix qualifying was probably the best of the season. There were a few good ones, great ones, but Monaco always delivers in qualifying. Just having to put the lap together to not hit the very, very close barriers. And then in the race, I think it's the swimming pool chicane at the end of the track. The fast left right, so right here, right after Tabac. If the F1, I mean, they had the Stroll moment last year where they cut to Stroll struggling at the second part of the swimming pool, but instead of showing that one overtake on track that was going up into the casino. But that first swimming pool chicane, if they put a camera, and they showed it a few times, if they just kept the camera lens on the TV screen right at that corner, the exit of that corner, I could watch it there the entire time because of how just mind-boggling it is that these drivers are on the limit through that corner every time for 78 laps. It absolutely blows my mind. So Monaco, for that, for the history, being part of the Motor Racing Triple Crown, it's got to be an A track, even if the racing is substandard. So after Monaco, I believe they go to Baku. So let's put Baku. And I think Baku is a B. Typically has crazy races due to the weather, the wind change, the unique layout of the castle section and the corners after that. But the city, the main straight, in my opinion, is too long. It's too easy to pass. I think if DRS wasn't even a thing on this straight, it'd actually be better for the racing. And I don't mind turn 1. And I understand they're on a street course, so they can't do a lot about the turns not being 90 degrees. But this final part of Sector 1 and the start of Sector 2 I really don't like. But at the same time, I love the castle section. I love the corners after that. So that puts it at a B. Then we go to Canada. And Canada's got to be an S. From the first set of turns to the hairpin at the end to the Wall of Champions. I mean, you can't... even though I know I haven't watched a race there, but when I had F1 TV last year, I watched a lot of the old races. And it's just a fantastic circuit. It's my favorite to drive on the F1 game. It's just flowing. It feels right. And again, Albert Park changed, so that's why I'm not ranking that, despite never watching Canadian Grand Prix, and ranking that. It fantastic in my opinion. I'm excited to watch the race this year at Montreal. I'm looking forward to hopefully going there soon, hopefully for next year or 2024, as it's actually the closest Grand Prix to where I am in the United States. So I am hopeful to experience that race sometime in the very near future. Then we come back to Europe, and I believe it is France. I want to say it's France. So Paul Ricard, C. Good circuit in the form that it's a driver's circuit. It's flowing. It's connected. There's a few clumsy parts in Sector 1 and Sector 3. But ultimately, it's a nice flowing circuit, which is its redeeming qualities. The problem is fast and flowing does not cut it with F1 cars. And with the amount of layout opportunities they have at that track to maybe edit it, change it up a bit, I don't think F1 has chosen the circuit layout. They could certainly change it up to make it better. They have the money. The track has the space. I know it's a testing facility, but I'm sure if F1 threw some money at them, they do it. France needs to have a Grand Prix on the schedule, and between here and Magny-Cours, neither are really suitable for modern F1, but in different ways. Paul Ricard with its excessive runoff, tarmac, which is for testing purposes, and then Magny-Cours that's just not up to date or big enough for the modern cars. So it's really a shame that F1 hasn't attempted to do something to make Paul Ricard better or to make Magny-Cours better. I wish they would do something or get together with the French government. Next we go to Austria, and this is probably controversial, and this is probably my bias in the F1 game, but I do not like the Red Bull Ring. To me, it's not only too short, which is kind of hypocritical because of Monaco's shorter than Salzburg, I believe, but I just don't like it. To me, the middle sector, that double left-hander, and then the right-hander off the backstretch, and the double left-hander, that is all nice. I enjoy that part of the circuit. I don't like the final turn. I don't like the front stretch. I don't like the first turn. The hairpin up there, I think it's a good corner, but if you ever see the old Österreich ring that was run at Spielberg, I much preferred that layout. It was a lot more technical. It was bigger, and I wish that when they redid the track, they kept that version but had updated it to modern standards. And then you have the pit lane entry road too, and that's horrible. I mean, sure, the F1 game should be able to code it better, but you see it in real life that there's incidents there. I mean, Yuki Tsunoda got 2 penalties because he just went a little too wide in that corner trying to carry speed in so he doesn't get slammed into from behind because these cars are going flat out through that section of the track. I really don't like Spielberg. And that's a little unfair for the Red Bull Ring, but so be it. Then we come to another classic, and I don't know. I'm going to go A. Silverstone, British Grand Prix, the site of the first F1 Grand Prix in 1950. I enjoy the layout of the track. With watching older races, I think I might prefer the older layout with bridge more than the modern layout. I'm not really a big fan of the start-finish area. I think that final chicane, and I apologize for not knowing the corner names, but the final chicane and the curved corner I don't really like, and then the front few 4-turn complex onto that front stretch I don't like. I think when they redesigned it, they should have maybe curved the straight to the right, or maybe kept it going around bridge and then make that into a hairpin that came onto this straight. But that's just my thoughts. But I still think as a historic track, it's a good venue. You've got everything. You've got the high speed, you've got the low speed, you've got the straights. I think Silverstone is definitely an A. So after Silverstone, they go to the Hungaroring, and this is a D. Um, I like the challenge of the first sector, and that I don't mind that chicane actually. It's the complex that turns after that chicane that really do it in for me, and then the final sector. I mean, it's not very creative to repeat the turn through. What is it? Three, turn two, turn three here, and the final two turns. I don't know. I think the one of the older versions that bent this straight a bit more across diagonal was better. It created a better turn in here. I don't really like this final turn, but I guess it's more the nature of the S, the squiggle of those final two turns that really does it for me. That I don't like. So after Hungary's the mid-season break, and then we go to Belgium, and that's easy. Spa-Francorchamps. Nothing more needs to be said. S tier, fantastic track, and with these new cars that can follow a bit better, I think we're going to see some fantastic races there. Yeah, I think Spa, should forever be on the F1 calendar. It's unfortunate what happened last year with the rain. That's just, I'm not going to get to that, but that doesn't demean from the track. The track is historic. I'm glad they are reworking the Eau Rouge Radion corner complex. I think it needs changing. I think actually slowing that corner down would not only making it a driver's challenge, but making it about getting your car up there and onto the Camel Straight as quick as possible. But you have to take that. You can't overlook Eau Rouge and Radion like you can in a car nowadays where you're flat out, or at least last year where you're flat out, and if something goes wrong, you're probably going to be seriously hurt. So I'm happy they're reworking that. The rest of the track, spot on. And so, yeah, S. Then after Spa, we go to Zandvoort. And I've got really mixed opinions about Zandvoort. I think that on the F1 game, it's horrible just because of the AI and some of the curbs. But to watch a quali lap there, it's a lot like Monaco of, wow, this track is something else. And I think if they had a bit more room to play with, the track would be better, could be a bit wider. But I think the fact that it qualifying redeems it here. So I'm gonna go B. Qualifying's an A, racing's a C to D. I think it's more or less even out to a B. We'll see with this year's cars how this all changes. So after Zandvoort, we go to Russia, I believe, and Sochi's a D. The first for 75% of this track, it's a C/a B. You're gonna have 90-degree corners anywhere you go when you're in a street circuit. And this is, I know it's not technically a street circuit. It might be technically a street circuit, but to me, it's a street circuit. Because when asked to build a racetrack around fixed large buildings, which is what this is around, as it's around the 2014 Winter Olympic Park, you are asking for trouble. I think the main detriment to this track is Sector 3 and Turn 2, which is really Turn 1. That angle that it's at, that sharp right, but then immediate left into the very nice long Turn 3, I think ruins the flow of the track. I understand you need a hard braking point there. If you're going to put a hard braking point, shorten up that straight, stick a proper chicane, like the bus stop at Belgium, and force them to, successfully navigate that. Not quick bend right, hard left-hand turn to go into the long left-hander. And then the third sect, oh my. I don't even have a problem with the final two turns. It's or even the chicane at the end of that second stretch. It's the off-cambered left and then right that I have an issue with. So I don't know if you could fix that by taking the track and moving it a bit to, I guess, the north in this picture, where you straighten out this curve maybe to here, have that chicane like cut back a bit deeper, and then like flow out into this and have a little short shoot into the final two turns. I think that'd be better. But then again, I mean, Tilka I think gets a lot of hate for this track, even though it's not really his fault. Um, so from Russia we go to Singapore, and Singapore is a C. The sorry about that. The F1 game I think does a good job at portraying the track. I've again watched a few races here, just not live. And I think it's a good track. I think it is a proper challenge for the drivers, but I think the thing that brings it down is again Sector 3. I looked it up once, and here, let me find it. I created a alternate Singapore layout that I think was better. Oh, I just got to find it. That's not it. Nope. Here we go. So this is my improved Singapore layout. Is you get rid of the right-hander, the left-hander under the bridge, and right-hander, and you just make that straight. There's a road there. I checked when making this redesign. You put a DRS zone there. You head into that chicane. I like that chicane at the end before you hit the pitch straight. Just straighten that out. And then when you get to the turn one stuff, just hairpin it. Bend it a bit, then hairpin it, and you get a much better run out onto what would then become turn 2 or 3 here. So that's my opinion on Singapore, is that it's a good track. It's got potential. They just chose to make a few more turns than needed. Then we come to Suzuka. And again, I've got mixed opinions because my experience on F1 2020, 2021 is not great at this track. But at the same time, the historical legacy of it, the flowing nature of the first sector, what used to be a challenge of I forget the name of it. 130R, I think, is the name of that corner on the backstretch. I think it's got to go A, like Silverstone. I'd make a few changes to the track, maybe tighten it up a bit, widen the track surface a bit. But overall, I think Suzuka's an A. It needs to be on the calendar. Oh crud! I missed Monza. Oh boy. Well, we'll do Monza next. So yeah, that's really my thoughts on Suzuka. It's like Silverstone, historic, needs to be on the calendar. But needs a little bit of improvement in my mind to make it truly S tier. Monza, a B. And I understand that this may be slightly inflammatory, but I'm not that big of a fan of Monza. It trains, and I understand why it's there, and I think it deserves to be on the calendar. I think it's one of those tracks that's permanently on the calendar. I just think that because modern reliability is so good, you don't have to play it safe with the engine layout. And I know they can't do engine modes in races anymore, which hurts Monza a lot, I feel, because that was always a strategy thing. You turn the engine up, to help deploy, to help get that power to pass, and not having that at Monza nowadays, I think really hurts it. Plus, I mean, in modern F1 cars where you're making one pit stop, it's just kind of a train. And so that's why Monza's a B, but I still think it needs to be on the calendar every year. So let's see, Suzuka. I think after Suzuka, they go to Coda. And Coda's a B. Sector 1 I like. I think it maybe has a little bit too much S. I think I'd get rid of let me see if I can zoom in here. I'd get rid of, after this S right here, I'd just straighten it out and kind of have a little bit longer of a straight heading into this hairpin. And then in Sector 3, I don't mind this hairpin, and I like the long turn here, but I maybe would have done it here where you go hairpin, long turn, final two corners. Get rid of this awkward short double right-hander left onto that long turn. Um, I would have preferred that, but I think Coda's actually a good track. It's got good elevation. It's, in my opinion, and this is controversial, it's a better racing circuit than Indianapolis's road course, the F1 layout. But it's obviously not Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis has the prestige factor, which would I think level it with Coda. But I think Coda on the whole is a good, solid racing track. Then we get to Mexico. And my thoughts on Mexico is complicated because I think we should race there, but I don't understand this part down here. So I think that puts it as a C, and I hate the stadium. I think the stadium section, it might be my least favorite bit of track on the calendar. And, well, no, never mind. That's safe for Barcelona's chicane. But Mexico, you make the second go straight into a hairpin, and you hairpin it off into the S's, which is fine. I like the S's. And then the stadium section, you just make it one large chicane. You maybe bend that back stretch a little bit so you have a chicane going through there. No hard right-hand turn, hairpin at 20 miles an hour, then right-hand turn, then a right-hand. Get rid of that. Simplify it. Just put a chicane going on that backstretch into the stadium and then out of the stadium, and fans still get to see the cars. Have the podium ceremony there still. I think that's fantastic about it. I think the atmosphere is fantastic. I don't like the racing in that section of the track. Then we get to Interlagos, and that is ding, 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 ding. S all the way. Classic F1. It's got everything. It's got the slow. It's got the fast. And unlike at Coda, where they, I think, tried to replicate before the long left-hander, that Interlagos, right hairpin, medium left, right hairpin, they failed because they didn't make it wide enough. While Interlagos, you're wide enough. You've got width in the track. It feels like a proper set of corners there. And then obviously you've got the front stretch, which curves down or up and then down, and then the Senna S, and then the back stretch, and then the nice right-hand turn, which dips down, and then you go back up into the right-hander. I really like Interlagos. So that will be my fourth and final S track. And then Yas Marina, the finale. Personally, I would, if I could make the F1 the calendar, I would actually start here, because that way you still get your oil money, right? But you end at Interlagos, but that's another video. Yas Marina. I think in this layout that I currently have, it's a C, borderline D. No, I think it's got to be a C. It's a high C, so I'll put it in front of. I'll put here. Yeah, that's, and then. No. Here, sorry, I'm just gonna reorganize them real quickly based off of, yeah, yeah, but just based off of how I think of them, best, worst in terms of their specific letters. I think Yas Marina's the new layout is much better. They got rid of that horrible chicane going into the hairpin. Turn 4-5, now it's just one turn. Or 4-5-6 is now just one turn. Love that. I like the sweeping left at the very end. Sector 3 still horrible, which is why it's a C. But I think on the whole, those changes have made it better. So that wraps up the tier list of what I think about the tracks on the 22 calendar. Again, 3 of them are unranked, and I believe I've got all of them. Let me just quickly check. Oh, no, that's only 19. Oh, I am missing a few tracks. Hold the phone here. 16, 19. Oh, no, 20, 23. That's 23. I can do math. All right. Well, so we're going to go into our second one, which is the drivers. And obviously, you can see that there are repeats here. Just ignore the repeats. And we're going to go in order that they come here. So Valtteri Bottas, I think he's a good driver. I think he was facing, and I'm actually going to create another a row above, and I'm going to label it World Champion material or world champion level. And I think he's a good driver. I think he was up against Lewis Hamilton and he did better than most. Um, that being said, his inconsistencies in the race really harmed him. I think he's going to be good at Alfa Romeo. I think he's actually going to get the most out of the car, drag it up the field to places it shouldn't be in, fighting around that 10th to 12th position, which is where they were last year, but they were a quicker car. I don't think relatively Alfa is going to be as quick this year. So I think Valtteri's is a good driver. Now we get to Carlos, and we're just going to do the two Ferraris right now. Carlos Sainz is a great driver. His consistency and his awareness in racecraft is next level, in my opinion. He doesn't have the outright pace, but his consistency really, gives him a lot of points, and that's why he beat his teammate last year. That's why he beat Charles Leclerc, Ferrari's golden boy, the next Ferrari, driver, essentially, in terms of long term. And bouncing on to Charles, he has world champion level driver, but his consistency isn't there. You saw it at Monaco. He binned his final qualifying lap, where, yes, he may have lost pole, but he threw away at least a podium. He probably's podiuming. And who knows what happens? Maybe because he's there and Max Verstappen, and, there's, right? And then at Baku, he gets pole, but only has it really because Tsunoda crashed or someone crashed. It might have been Sainz, crashed in Q3. I don't think he would have held on to the front position at pole or one pole. And, he just has more mistakes in him than Sainz at the moment. And that's why he's not world champion level. Still great. I still think he's better than Sainz on the day normally. But I don't see him at the moment taking that next step to world champion level this year. Alex Albon. I think he goes with Valtteri. I think he's a good driver. He obviously that year out, we don't know. He's stepping into Williams that's unknown to him and where it'll be on the grid. But to fight for podiums and the occasional race win a few times whilst in the Red Bull, I think he deserves to be in the good category. Danny Rick. And this is probably going to be controversial, but I think he's a good driver. You saw last year, his first year with the new team, he struggles occasionally with that. He did at Renault his first year away from Red Bull, and he did at McLaren last year. Obviously, he got the victory, which kind of skewed, in my opinion, his season. And he did improve. He did have some good races, but I think he is a good driver. I think he's fallen off from where he was maybe 2-3 years ago. And so, yeah, I think Danny Rick is a good driver. Now we get to Fernando Alonso, and I think it's great. I think he's still a great driver. I don't think he's got the outright pace that he used to, but his racecraft like Sainz is top tier. You saw it when he was battling Hamilton at Hungary, and in Qatar, racing for the podium there. I think he's gonna be impressed this year in an Alpine car that probably will be a bit closer to the mid pack, to the front, but fighting front mid pack. So yeah, I think we're gonna see a good season from Fernando. Sebastian Vettel, I think we're going to put in the good tier. Again, you can't discount his 4 world champions. I'm not talking about the drivers based off of their whole history. I'm just predicting how I think they're going to be after last season into this season. And I think Sebastian Vettel's a good driver. I think he's consistent. He has the occasional mistake, but I think he'll be there. battling for points for Aston Martin, which is huge this year as they look to rebound from a poor season last year. Obviously, I think he could come out and shock the world because he's Sebastian Vettel, four-time champion. You can't count him out. But at the moment, I think that is where he is. And Yuki Tsunoda, a little unfair, I'd say, because he faced Pierre Gasly, who I rate quite highly, as you'll see next. But I think at the moment, he's just an average driver on the grid. He shows glimpses, but the consistency wasn't there. Granted, it was his rookie campaign, but with a new car this year and his second year and still facing Gasly, I think he's going to struggle. I think he's going to be more consistent. I just don't think he's going to be able to show how much potential I think he has. I think he has potential to be up here, but I don't think he's going to get there this year or even next year, which may cost him his spot on the grid, which would be sad. Pierre Gasly, I think he's great. I think so far he's the lowest of the greats that I have up here. I mean, what can you say? He was fantastic in qualifying. I think his race pace maybe left something to be desired some weekends. Maybe that was the car, the setup, the strategy. I do think that he'll have another strong year this year, finishing in the top 10 of points. But I think the AlphaTauris, the O3, the AT03 will not be as good this year. So I think he's going to get the most out of that car, but overall he's going to see his points drop as the team won't be as good. Mick Schumacher. I'm going to put these next. I'm just going to do these next two now. Mick Schumacher, obviously son of Michael Schumacher, the 7-time world champion, arguably one of the greatest drivers, if not the greatest driver of all time in F1 history. We don't really know. I think he's about good to average to good. Crashed a lot last year, but then again, rookie. He was only really fighting his teammate for most of the season. I think the Haas will be better this year, so we'll be able to see what he can do. He's always better in his second year in a series. So I think he's right now an average driver, but I could see him moving up to good. Latifi, I mean, it was against George Russell, so it's no shock he got battered. And he's consistent, he's clean, but he's off the pace. Or at least he gets the normal pace of the Williams. And so I think that makes him an average driver. I think, with the financial support, obviously Williams have made a good choice in retaining him because as that team rebuilds, they should look to have resources. I think it'd be stupid to ignore the extra resources for a good, consistent driver or an average, consistent driver when he can bring in a good budget. The next two are going to go in meh. And I'm going to just get rid of this last row. Mazepin and Zhao. Mazepin, obviously, for the stuff he did last offseason, and then his dismal rookie season, he goes in meh. He's gonna be lower than Zhao. But I think he has pace. Ultimately, I think it was a combination of not being in the right mental space, plus all the distractions of the offseason stuff, plus the poor car, plus all those factors contribute to his horrible season. But I think he's a meh driver. He's maybe will score a point this year. I think he'll be better, but still probably the worst driver on the grid. Then we have Guan Yu Zhao, and I think he's about the same talent level as Mazepin. Both were race winners in F2. Both are fairly consistent drivers, at least in F2. I think Zhao's going to struggle just because it's his rookie year. I don't think the Alpha is the best package. But I don't think he's going to go out and wreck the field or be, wildly off the pace. But I do expect him to get beat like 20-2 or 20-3 by Bottas in qualifying. Then we get to Norris, who I'm going to put in between Charles and Sainz. I think Norris is a great driver. I think the McLaren fell off a lot in the last half of the season, and obviously this is only Norris's fourth year of F1, so I don't think he has the experience to be world champion level, but he's getting there. and he had a really strong season, and I think he'll be looking to push on this season. Um, then we get to George Russell, and I'm gonna actually put Russell behind Sainz. Still in the great category. I mean, if you get P2 and the wet conditions at Belgium in a Williams, you deserve to be in this category. Um, his inconsistency going for the elusive point, cost him a few times. And I feel like that's what, again, he hasn't had that experience in a front running car. I could see him winning a world championship. I could maybe even see him beating Lewis Hamilton this year. But it'd be unlikely. I see him, taking the year, winning a few races, being on the podium consistently. And I think he will take the step up. He just isn't there yet. So then Lewis Hamilton. I mean, I don't think I need to say anything. I think Lewis Hamilton is, again, with Schumacher. He's with Schumacher. It's him, Schumacher, Clark, Fangio, Senna, Prost, and the all-time greats. And, I think he's going to bounce back this year. And I think it's going to be quite special to see, even if the Merc isn't going to be the outright fastest car. And apparently it looks like Max Verstappen is not in this list. So obviously I'm going to put Max up here in the world champion level. His consistency's there now. He's aggressive in the way that Senna, was reported to be, where it's kind of like my way or the highway. And he's not afraid to get into wrecks. And, that's controversial, but it suits him, I feel like, because he took advantage of Lewis not being willing to fight as hard in the beginning of the season. And it got him points that ultimately, mattered. And it covered for when stuff like Baku happened where he couldn't control the tire blowout, or like at Silverstone where they collided, or Monza where they collided, or, stuff like that. So I think Max Verstappen is behind Lewis, obviously, in terms of ranking, but I think he's obviously a deserved person to put at this world champion level. Lance Stroll, a good driver. Probably here. Lance Stroll, I think, gets a lot of hate because of who his dad is and how he's guaranteed a spot. But I think Lance is a good driver. I wouldn't be surprised to see if Aston Martin can improve their package over the next few years, him winning a race. He should have won at Turkey in 2020. He had a great weekend there, and he got screwed over by strategy. And just a funky race. I think, on his day, Lance, and he proved it last year, Lance was more consistent than Seb. Lance was there more often. He wasn't as high. Seb had higher highs, but he also had lower lows. So I think Lance is a solid, good driver. And then we come to Checo. I think Checo's a good driver. I think Checo is a driver that he's so consistent and makes so few errors that he's borderline great, but he just doesn't have the outright pace. And, for the small Racing Point team or Force India team, that's fantastic. For when he had a car that could deliver, he delivered. You saw that with Racing Point in 2020. He delivered. I mean, you saw it last year in the Red Bull, which was arguably the fastest car. He beat Bottas when it mattered. Sure, he had a few off races. It took him a little bit of time to get going. He had a horrible middle stretch of the season. But at the same time, and his qualifying to Verstappen's not great, but, it's against Verstappen. So I think he's a good driver. I think he's definitely the best of the rest, so to say, down here in the good category. And so coming on to the final driver, Esteban Ocon, I don't know. I feel like this is harsh, but I don't feel like he's here. I'm gonna put him here. I think he's solid mid pack. I think that literally is mid pack. 1, 2. Yeah, he's 12th. He's 12th on my list if you go left to right by the tiers. So I think Esteban will have a good season in the Alpine this year. I think he'll just be mainly in the mid pack, but he'll surprise every now and then, get a podium or two. I definitely think he's more of a... I'm trying to think of a driver that I know of. in a different series. I think he's more of like a. Oh wow, I don't really even know who to compare him to. I don't know. I think he'll be there. I think he'll be better this year. Definitely more consistent. But I don't think he'll be fighting for wins or podiums consistently. Um, unlike or even top fives. I think Fernando's much more likely to fight for top fives, and Fernando's again almost up there with Hamilton and Senna and Prost and Schumacher and Fangio and Clark. And I think Alonso's in that next tier down, and I don't think Esteban will ever get to that level, but I certainly think he deserves his seat. I think he's a good race car driver, especially in today's Formula One. So that's all 20 drivers. We have 2 in the world champion level. Obviously, the defending champion Max Verstappen, who this tier creator did not put in here, plus Lewis Hamilton. And then I think great borderline on world champion is Charles and Norris. And then the greats, or the great at the moment of Sainz, Russell, Alonso, Gasly. Good is Perez, Ricardo, Vettel, Ocon, Bottas, Albon, and Stroll. And then averages Yuki, Schumacher, and Latifi. And then meh is Zhou and Mazepin. So that wraps up that. And that wraps up today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the little bit of difference, a little bit of something out of the ordinary. I plan on doing this for IndyCar and NASCAR, definitely in terms of tracks. For the track side, maybe I'll do the drivers too. But I wanted to do this because I don't think it's appropriate to release my preseason preview or my Formula One preview. But at the same time, with the testing going on in Barcelona, I want to have something F1 out there, so I think this is a good way to kick off this year's F1 content. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this, please hit that like button, the subscribe button, and comment down below with anything you would change on today's rankings. Take one last look at the drivers' rankings here, and then here are the track rankings. And then I hope that you all have a great day. If you wish to view past podcasts, they are in a playlist on the channel, split up by both the overall number and the series-specific ones. So this will be in its own F1 podcast playlist, or F1 episode playlist, as well as the overall list, as this is episode 11. I should be back tonight with another stream of my 2021 Fast Car Series, which will be racing at Martinsville, the half-mile short track for race number 7 of that series. And, yeah. I hope you guys all have a fantastic day,